Hi guys, welcome to Sourcing Classes. This is Hima Hegde presenting before you a video session on the anthropology related current affairs. To begin with, let us look at the topics underlined for the week. The week as in from 8th of May to 14th of May. So here we have the main topics, that would be archaeology, and the subtopics as mentioned. Similarly, tribal affairs, followed by physical or biological anthropology, then socio-cultural anthropology, linguistic anthropology, and anthropologist in news, that is Paul Rabinow. Now each of these subtopics are elaborated in detail in the anthropology news diary document that you will find in the official website of Sourcing Classes, that is www.sourcingclasses.com. So let us now look at the topics underlined for today. Firstly, we'll look at African tribes, and then we'll learn how fossils are formed, followed by the frog marriage ritual in Tripura, then Khasis, India's indigenous matrilineal society. So firstly, we have the African tribes. The African continent has 54 countries and around 1.3 billion people. There are an estimated 3,000 tribes speaking more than 2,000 different languages, each with its own style, look and culture. From shaven heads to intricate beards, brightly colored clothing to intricate beaded jewelry, these are just some of the features of diverse African tribes. In today's session, we will be discussing with three of such tribes. First one is called the San. So San, hunter-gatherer. The hunter-gatherer San people are one of the world's oldest tribes and probably the first inhabitants of southern Africa. Currently, approximately 1 lakh descendants of them are predominantly found in Botswana, Namibia, Angola and South Africa. The San people, also known as Bushmen, are recognizable for the unique clicking sound they make when speaking. The San's tracking and hunting skills are renowned, helping them to survive the desolate and unforgiving landscape of southern Africa's deserts and vast salt pans. They are dressed in loin clothes. As you can see here, a loin cloth is nothing but a single cloth that is usually worn in hotter regions. So they are dressed in loin cloths with bows and arrows slung over their shoulders. They make animal traps, find roots and tubers, and even make tobacco from zebra dung. Moving on, we have the Maasai tribes. The Maasai are arguably the most famous of all African tribes and live along the Great Rift Valley of Kenya and Tanzania. Their usual attire would be red sarong-like blankets, pierced earlobes and colorful ornaments, as you can see here. Their famous tradition includes the jumping dance called as Adamu and their predilection for spitting and drinking blood. Adamu is performed as a part of initiation rites when young adults become men and eligible bachelors. Accompanied by songs, pairs of men take turns to see who can jump the highest. Now this would represent the prowess and fitness levels, and the one who jumps the highest attracts the most capable or the best bride. When shaking the hand of an elder, it is important to spit in one's palm and to ward off evil spirits. One must spit onto a newborn baby's hand in the Maasai culture. Now we have the Himba tribes. The unforgiving, desolate Kunene region of northwest Namibia is home to a resilient people called the Himba. The tribe of hunter-gatherers and pastoralists has successfully maintained their culture and traditional way of life, predominantly because the area they call home is incredibly remote. Hidimba women are famous for their appearance in red tinged complexions, as you can see in the picture, and thick red hair again seen in the picture, in elaborate hairstyles. Elaborate hairstyles. Now hair for Himba women signifies age and status, starting with shaved heads for younger children, then braids and plaits for graduating to a leather ornament called an erembe, or erem, who have had children. The unique color comes from a paste that is made from butter, fat and ochre. Butter, fat and ochre, and it is called orgies. It is called orgies. Central to the Himba's culture belief is Okuruo, the holy fire, which symbolizes their connection to their ancestors who are believed to be in direct communication with Mukuru, that is the Himba god. Moving on, we will now see how our fossils formed. Now a fossil's creation can happen in many different ways, but all fossils come from things that lived in a past geological age, like dinosaurs or any other creatures. They can be as small as a single cell or as giant as a dinosaur. They can be a single cell or something very huge as a dinosaur skeleton or a petrified tree. It is rare to become a fossil since most parts of an animal or plant break down quickly. They break down quickly after death, hence it makes it difficult to turn them into a fossil. For a fossil to form, sediment must cover the organisms quickly. The sediment protects the remains from scavenging animals, erosion and decay. Most often, fossils include hard tissues like bones, teeth, shells and wood, since soft tissues rarely preserves. But footprints and other marks left behind can fossilize too. Sometimes empty spaces in the animal or the plant body fill with minerals from groundwater. Other times, sediment around the organism turns into a stone and the original remains dissolved, leaving a mold. When it fills the sediment, it creates a cast fossil. Now what are amber fossils? Amber fossils occur when resin oozing from the plants, that is the tree gum. The resin is the tree gum. Oozing from the plants traps inside the insects and then hardens. Fossils lurk below the surfaces in the region of surface of Iowa. That is, it's a region in America, and even 100 million year old dinosaur bones have been unearthed here. Most Iowa fossils come from aquatic life. Scientists have also dug up 15,000 year old teeth and mastodons and mammoths, as well as 10,000 year bones of a ground sloth family that lived in Iowa during the Ice Age. Moving on, here we have an interesting ritual that has taken place in Tripura and also many other places in India. This is the frog marriage ritual. So let us first look at the context. Tribal tea garden workers in West Tripura recently organized a Hindu wedding ceremony for 2 frogs in a hope of pleasing the rain god Indra. Coming to the highlights, the village in Tripura organized the wedding for 2 amphibians, that is the frogs, 2 amphibians in a ceremony traditionally known as Banger Biye, that is frog wedding. In regional language, it's called as Banger Biye. Here, the frogs tied the knot after having taken a dip in the water and having been dressed in fancy wedding clothes. The villagers believe that the wedding ceremony would save them from the drought-stricken condition of their tree garden. Moreover, in the marriage, the 2 toads were married, performing all the rituals from a bath in the pond or river to new dresses and exchange of garlands. Back in 2019, Karnataka's Udupi arranged the wedding of 2 frogs so as to please the rain gods. In Karnataka, the ritual is called as Manduka Parinaya. Manduka means frog, Parinaya would be the wedding or the alliance. Manduka Parinaya. And it was performed by the Udupi Nagarika Vedike or the UCF, that is Udupi Citizen Forum. The frogs were dressed in custom wedding outfits, and the Hindu traditions were performed, the custom made outfits for their wedding. Similarly, in 2018, Assam natives also performed a wedding ceremony in which the female toad is made to sit and oil is applied to her body. Regionally known as Bekuli Biya. Bekuli Biya, a frog wedding in Assam, that is Bekudi, means frog in Assamese, and Biya stands for marriage. So a mass feast, music and dance are also a part of this ritual. Let us now discuss about the Khasis, India's indigenous matrilineal society. What is matrilineal? It is just that the kinship follows along the female line. So coming to the Khasis, according to the local folklore, the Khasis come from 7 divine clans. 7 divine clans. In the 1967 book, The History and the Culture of the Khasi People, by Hamlet Barre, the Indian author and historian, traces them to an ancient Aztec race in Southeast Asia who descended from a Mon Khmer group of people in the remote Burmese jungles. While it's uncertain when Khasis migrated west to the mountains and foothills of northeastern India, to the northeastern part of India, linguistic evidence shows that their language, that is the Khasi language, has similarity to Mon Khmer dialects. During the Bangladesh Liberation War in 1971, some Khasi families became separated and now live across the border from Meghalaya in Bangladesh. Another significant portion of the population lives in the neighboring state, that is Assam or Bangladesh, the country. As warriors who have often battled with other groups for land, Khasi men often went down to the plains for clashes. During those battles, some men died, others settled for a new life in plains. Now left without partners, the Khasi women would remarry. They would remarry or find other partners, and it often became difficult to determine a child's paternity. Khasi's matrilineal shares similarities with the world's other handful of matrilineal societies, such as wealth and property passing from mother to their daughters and descent through the mother's line. Traditionally, Khasis live in close-knit extended families or clans. Since children take their mother's last name, daughters ensure the continuity of the clan. Daughters have the liberty to live in their ancestral homes or move out, except for the youngest daughter, that is called as Kakudu, who is the custodian of the property. Even after her marriage, she never leaves home. She looks after her parents and eventually becomes the head of the household after her mother's death. With colonization and missionary education, however, some Khasis left their villages looking for work in towns. Although some Khasi fathers head up certain households, that is the Pasa. Pasa, like most people in Meghalaya, believe that age-old Khasi cultural practices through the mother's line are so embedded in their lives that Khasi's unique matrilineal will survive for decades to come. Meanwhile, things are also evolving for Khasi women. That is, the traditional matrilineal society has always kept women out of the larger decision-making process, like the village council. But in recent times, the Pasa believes that it's slowly beginning to improve, especially in the urban localities. So that's about it for today's video. Hope you found it informative. For any details regarding the course or for the documents, the PDF of the document, do visit www.sourcingclasses.com. Thank you.